All right. Good morning, everyone. And in line with the topic, Guten Morgen, Bonjour. I don't know what else we have. Tawan, Buongiorno. This is the multilingual marketing session, and the topic today is how to set up and run a multilingual website and make it work for SEO. So again, good morning, everyone. Outline of today's session, just a super quick intro, who we are, why bother with multilingual, what are some key considerations in terms of website setup, how do we think about SEO in a multilingual environment, and what other than some technical things do we need to think about, and we also have some additional tips and tricks, and at the end we have a Q&A, and we should absolutely be able to go through this in about 15-20 minutes, and then the rest we leave for questions and answers. In terms of overall setup, not everyone speaks your language. When we look at the box here on the left side, there's about 7.7 billion of us on this planet, and we speak 7,000 and some 164 languages, 430 deaf, so totally different way of communication. And there's a double-digit percentage of us, 14%, who can't read. Key message here is when you're out there with your website, there is a large percentage of people, more than 61% of internet users speak a language other than English, and the top 5 spoken languages, which is Mandarin Chinese, English, Spanish, Hindi, and Arabic, there you have about 43% of the global population. So it is a good thing to have your website speak more than one language if you are having products or services in more than one language. So Multilingual, who is Aspiration Marketing. We're a digital marketing agency, and we drive growth for businesses, B2B marketing, and we do that through our marketing services and sales services. We have a global customer base. Our small team speaks about 7 languages. We do have on our website communication, blog posts, information in 5 languages currently, and we also have email communication in 5 languages. And as part of our engagement with HubSpot, one of the leading CRM systems out there, marketing automation and CMS systems, as part of our partnership with HubSpot, we've been asked to run a multilingual HubSpot user group, the HUG, as HubSpotters say. That'll start in Q2. We're targeting a session at the beginning of June to launch how do we do multilingual marketing on HubSpot. So there's more on that subject coming along. So let's let's look into what are some of the benefits of multilingual websites, multilingual marketing. Obviously, we want to reach a global audience. You have your language depending on what it is. If you're speaking English, if you're speaking Chinese, you might have an initial population that's reasonably significant. But as we shared at the very beginning, there are additional languages, there are additional prospects out there that can benefit from it. So you have a higher reach with your global audience that you can tap into, and you have additional elements of creating trust if the company speaks my language, they obviously are closer to me. They can service the product. They can provide services in that language. That's a different positioning as compared to a company who's on the other side of the planet, who speaks a language that we don't, that would reduce the chances of interacting with customers. So the chance of increased customer trust, increased customer brand loyalty is certainly a second big advantage. And last but not least, from a competitive perspective, many competitors of yours are not doing what you're about to do when going multilingual. So you do have a competitive edge there. However, excuse me. However, it goes without saying, you do have to make sure that you can deliver the service or the product in the language that your customers expect. When you set that expectation, having a website that speaks the language. No point in having the website speak a language. You get a phone call and you can't answer the phone call because you don't speak the language. So bottom line though, we're seeing in environments with more than one language, with websites in more than one language, the expected additional traction that you get the traffic from visitors that speak that language. And if you're setting it up, and we're talking about that, if you're setting it up, you also get the conversions and ultimately leads and customers in that additional language. Going along here in terms of website setup, what do we need to do to actually become multilingual on a website? You can see a couple of examples on our website. I'm happy to respond to questions, or if you want to reach out to us afterwards, share examples how this is being done well versus not so well. Key considerations when getting started. Think about the appropriate URL structure. You can have the usual discussion between what's better. Is it a subdirectory? Is it a subdomain? For Spanish, would you have a es.company.com? Would you have company.com/es for Spanish? Or do you have just a subfolder? Depends a little bit on your hosting environment. Is the site hosted? The multi-language variation, is it hosted on the same server than the main site? That would allow you to do subdirectories. If not, you might have to go subdomains because the domain is hosted somewhere else. There are other criteria to consider in terms of familiarity with people. There's many big promotions here in Canada, as an example, where companies like GoDaddy push very hard that as a Canadian company, you should be having a .ca domain. Little to do with language in this case, but certainly considerations to keep in mind when setting up your website. Key, as in your native language as well, content quality, relevance needs to be there. I mean, if it isn't standing out from a quality perspective, there's no point in terms of being out there. You need to deliver quality content to your website, to your visitors. It needs to be relevant for them, and also it needs to be ultimately in a quality language that appeals to your buyer persona, which is the translation, or if you're not translating it, but if it's additional not translated content in that foreign language, that language needs to be properly written and properly understood, properly communicated. think about allowing for the opportunity to have language switchers. Don't just assume because if I'm launching my website, let's say we have an English website and I'm launching a second website in France, don't just set it up that way that whenever a French visitor comes, it shows in French, because the French visitor might be very interested in reading your content in English. That often happens where I can't even pull up a foreign language because I'm getting my browser language or my IP address language imposed, which is not a good thing. So best practice there clearly is to have a language switcher to showcase and nudge a potential visitor or a visitor that there's another language available, but leave it up to the visitor to switch to their language. That's one thing. Here's a question. I'm not seeing it yet. In terms of translations, also there are many machine translated options, very many AI translations available. But think about specifically from an SEO perspective, the text that you're providing, let's assume it's text, the same is true for video or for audio. The text you're providing, the content you're providing serves the visitor who needs to read it, who needs to listen to it, who needs to see it. At the same time, if you're translating the web page dynamically when it's being built up, that does do little for SEO and SEO indexing crawling. So think of having a separate web page versus just your original language page in a translated version. Technology choices, there's a couple of tools out there depending on the system you're running. There's plugins on the WordPress side. There are systems that are designed, HubSpot being one example, super cool in a very modular fashion where you define your primary language and you can, not that the CMS system will translate it, but it facilitates a good setup from an SEO perspective to run translated environments. If you go to our own website as an example, you see only for those pages that exist in a foreign language, you see on the top right a language switcher where you can go from one language to the other, and you can very well position your content that way. Same with email content, with personalization of email content, systems like HubSpot as an example, which is our system of choice. They're identified at the bottom, make it very easy to set up multilingual environments. And again, if help is needed, contact information is at the bottom of the presentation. Feel free to reach out and we'd be happy to give you a hand. Going along here in the presentation, what are some best practices from an SEO perspective? Definitely the same that works in your proven language, in your home language, in your native language, when you started out. Keyword research, making content relevant is of course as relevant in a multilingual environment in the foreign language as well. And I think it's coming somewhere there later on in the presentation, especially if you're not, and most people don't have that luxury, most companies don't have that luxury to have an entire website, web presence translated in one step. So many people, ourselves included, go gradually in terms of translating about us pages, contact us pages, blog posts, other pages into a second, third, fourth language. Start out with what worked in your proven language, take the most popular pages, and start translating those. At the same time, don't assume as a guarantee that those blog posts, the most popular one in English, will also be the most popular in French or in Chinese. Chances are they're doing reasonably well, but that very much depends on your environment. In terms of hreflang tags, an important thing to have, again, to identify within the meta structure and show to the search engines that you do have more than one language, and make sure that the appropriate language is being served in search results and ultimately when the website is being rendered. Localized metadata goes without saying. I mean, don't just create the text, but have the meta description in English. That just doesn't work from a search perspective. From a search result presentation perspective, Google will just not favor or any other search engine. That's a totally separate subject. Google is probably the search engine with 90+% market share in much of the Western world, but as an example, China, you will have to work with all the intricacies of Baidu. You will have to submit your site there, slightly different rules, but the overall concept is still very similar. Internal link building. Internal link building important, super important within any language. Important though from a user experience perspective, make sure when you do build links, when you do refer to other pages, stay within one language. Don't just follow algorithms of internal link building software that says link that Spanish article to a Chinese article. Chances are that your targeted user speaks both of those languages. They're pretty slim, so it's a poor user experience if I'm in an English environment, in an English text, and I get links that I should be going to in a language that I don't speak. And again, what's unchanged, what is not unique to SEO is content quality. SEO absolutely favors, no matter what the language is, no matter what the search engine is, high quality content in each of the languages. So here in terms of SEO, and then let's go a little bit beyond the technical and make it back to the original, one of the first slides that talked about the complexity of the language environment. Let's not forget that this is more than just having a translation and having a website. Think of what the buyer persona is, sharpen your buyer personas even further. In the English language, as an example, it's a rather informal communication in most cases, in most e-commerce cases, in most B2B cases where you're on a first name basis, and that's just the way it is, but that's not the way it is in many other languages. So if you are communicating with your target buyer persona, think about the first communication. Is that on a last name basis? Is that on a first name basis when it comes to email? And where do you capture that information on and in your CRM? Those are important considerations where you can win customers when you do it well, or where you can turn away customers, turn off customers, or prospects that will never become a customer because you're not addressing them in the appropriate way that they're expecting. at the bottom there, also important. If you are, and systems are getting better and better and better, you can do a lot of work with the AIs that are out there. If that's ChatGPT, if that's Gemini, you can get very close with your translations, but you also need to know, in many cases, terms aren't being translated. You do not translate the term, say, workflow into German or into Spanish. Those languages would use the term workflow in the English language, and that's just not yet something that AI translation captures properly. So having a human that speaks that language look over those translations, if you're going that route, is certainly a highly recommended approach. So this pretty much wraps up, and we're getting into the Q&As here in a second. Let me just give you a couple of additional resources to look into. Here we have on our site our own blog, currently in 5 languages. Have a look at that. The HubSpot Multilingual Marketing User Group is being launched. We would love to see you there. And of course, contact us if you do need a hand. And if you're seeing this recording on YouTube, you can do us a favor in terms of liking it, subscribing to the stream, and sharing it with those who might be interested in it. So before wrapping up, I'm seeing a couple of questions here in terms of, here's one I thought I talked about, but maybe I didn't cover it properly. The question is, you mentioned different URL structures. Can you give a real world example of each and when to use them? So this is about the language and the commonly used ISO codes that you're using in the URL structure, where EN for English, ES for Spanish, FR for French, right? Those codes, there is a certain nomenclature there that you want to follow. And then depending on your hosting setup, depending on your specific language setup, there is potential benefit in terms of structuring a language even further. So there is dialects, there's variations. Take German, that are different in Switzerland, that are different in Germany, that are different in Austria. So if you're targeting a very specific market, you do want to make sure that you do have the DE-CH for Swiss, German, and others included. So those are some examples there. Here I'm seeing another one, the href lang tag complexity. I'm seeing there, how complex is that? Many and most of those things benefit from a web designer being involved. At the same time, it isn't any complex coding that needs to become available, that needs to be implemented. Most web designers will be able to help you with implementation of, in this case, href lang tags. Make sure when you do that, that again, the purpose there is to identify variations in different languages, but also if you have 5 languages, we currently don't have any Arabic, you want to identify if there's a user with browser settings in Arabic, as an example, and you don't serve that, you have 5 languages, which of those 5 should be presented so there's an href lang default tag that you want to look into and actually make sure that this complies with, or this supports with your intent in terms of the default language. That might be an additional point. I hope that answers the hreflang question. Here, a question I think I touched on, is there a way to target specific language groups like Canadian French versus European French? Yes, absolutely there is. So in this case, you would have the country code go with it. So example, in Canadian French, then you would show currencies in Canadian dollars versus in European and French. You would have euros as a currency as an example. And so you can target those regions by having the appropriate FR-CA or FR-FR language code on your pages, and then structure the rendering accordingly. I see a last question here. My website gets some non-English traffic already. How can I tell which languages to start with? That's a great question. You have one language. That's how most websites starts. And you see one from a geography perspective. You can get those things out of Google Analytics, and you get input from browser settings. What's the browser language? And if you see that, you get a lot of visitors, say you're in the south of the United States, and you get a lot of visitors from Mexico, that might be an indication, you might be benefiting from having certain content available in Spanish. And so, like many areas, website, make it a data-driven approach. Start with areas that have the highest chance of success, where you can benefit, where your visitors can benefit from. In this case, having a unique language, an additional language, again, assuming that you can service that region with your products and with your services. But if you do, then by all means, look out for which areas are of potential interest, which areas of your website are of potential interest for your visitors in Mexico. So I think we're pretty much through questions. I don't know if there's an additional one. I don't know. I haven't seen any one of those, but we're pretty much at the end of time within the 30 minutes we set up. So let me close it out with, again, help us like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share the video with people interested in it. We'll also share the presentation with participants. Here at the bottom, also contact information, Aspiration Marketing. Here you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, or to request a hand if you're interested in going multilingual. Certainly a super interesting endeavor that we've had on our own, in our own business, and we'd be happy to help and encourage you to go beyond your one home language for your own business. So thanks again for watching. You have a great rest of the week, and all the best of luck. Thank you.